There we
Reco-
go.
We're live on the air and in your hair.
Well,
I still have
live,
some here and
maybe,
there. Yeah.
maybe in
So July's gone. August is here. August the 7th to be exact. And we're apparently no better off than we were in July the 7th, all things considered. Except the weather here in Grandy Bendy is very summer. It's 28 degrees, blue sky. The beach is full of people. The lake is lovely, and people aren't particularly concerned about life in general, it seems, in this town.
well, I guess that's as life should be.
I think so, until it starts to become cooler, and it's not beach weather.
That's true. Yeah. Well, as you said, we're into August. That means we've got 4 a bit months left to go before the end of 2025.
Yes.
And it's hard to believe that that's a quarter of a century ago that we were sitting on the edge of a new millennium, worrying whether society as we knew it was going to crash.
Well, a quarter of a century ago was 15 years before Back to the Future, the movie, was supposed to take place. If you remember in the movie, they go forward to 2015.
Yeah.
Okay, and they've got flying cars and all kinds of stuff. Well, that never happened.
Apparently,
Uh,
so the cartoon, the Jetsons, but
yeah, yeah. So, a lot of that pontificating that went on even in Hollywood didn't occur. So the reason that I bring that up is because my granddaughter is here visiting us, and she wanted to see the trilogy, and I just happened to have it on DVD. And so, an 11-year-old who looks at this and says, "I don't understand. 2015, we didn't have flying cars." I said, "Yeah, the best laid plans of mice and men and forward prognostication is not exactly a science that's well developed."
well, they probably took all their cues from everything else because wasn't it in the 70s that 10 years from there, in the 1980s, we were going to be out of fossil fuels, and
Oh
then
yeah.
the 80s
Yes.
came, we were going to have a mini ice age, and
Yes. I missed that.
we're not very good at prognosticating.
No, no. And if we fast forward to August 7, 2025, when people are saying there's no way X, Y, Z/Z is going to happen,
Yeah.
I'm going to say to them, bah, humbug. Even before Christmas, things will be happening in this part of the world if we keep doing what we're doing. That's my humble
But
prognostication.
yeah, there's a couple
Prognos,
things coming
yeah,
up. So one of them is that new,
prognostication. Sorry, got tongue-tied.
we've got that new by-election coming up very shortly. I think advanced polls open today. Now, if things go the way they're supposed to go, Mr. Poilievre will be back in the House of Commons when the current prime minister decides that they're going to reopen it. And that should be an interesting state of events. There's a lot of things going on here in the country that you're right. I mean, gosh, the future. Who would have thought that we would have been concerned about the number of immigrants that came into Canada?
Apparently not a concern to the current federal government.
Nor
The,
has it been for the last 5 years, that's for
no,
sure.
and in fact, the logic of this bunch is that the more people you bring in, the more your economy grows, and the better it is for everybody. Now, so far, that's not proven to be the case. Yet, we continue to do this, or at least not we, but the
The collective we.
yeah, the Borg seems to think this is what we should be doing. But Hey, listen, let's not do the episode where we can line up all the things that aren't working because uh we don't have the time. We don't want to bore people with that because we'll leave that for the next episode because I think stuff is starting to unravel and we'll have much to talk about in the next episode about how that's happening. We can't sell the steel. Mexicans told us to go pound salt. And that's just two parts of the equation this week.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, the post office is going to go on strike. Air Canada's going to go on strike. The cost of living goes up. Blah blah blah. We don't need that bad news. Let's talk about something else today for the short version of the Border Pool Journal for a hot August day.
Okay. And our topic today will be, does insanity rule?
Right. We're talking about lunatics today. Topic is lunatics. And why? Why is it that there are so many lunatics, by definition, unhinged folks, wandering around in leadership positions? Explain this to me. Or as they used to say in I Love Lucy, explain this to me, Lucy.
We certainly have some splaining to do, and I don't know that there's anybody that's qualified to do that. You know, I'm amazed, one, that you're right. There's a lot of, um, is lunatic too hard a word? Unhinged, uh, unstable.
Crackpot, nitwit.
But it's amazing that for every one person that falls into that category, we can find through mainstream media somebody who is willing to stand in front of a camera and a microphone and become an expert on something. Maybe we're no different, but who knows?
Well, isn't the definition of lunacy to some extent, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, you must be a lunatic to do that. Now that's stealing from, Einstein, but it kind of goes the same way with what we're trying to define here as what is causing us so much grief here in the summer of 2025 when things really should be much better than what they are. There's no reason why we need to have all this grief on the economic front here in
Yeah.
North America, particularly that pink part on the map where we live. There's just no reason for it. And is it because the people who are in the middle of all this, so you're not in the extreme this way or the extreme that way on this whole issue. Have all those people lost their spines or what? Because nobody seems to be speaking up in a normal way. I mean, I don't know if you find it, but I find a lot of the folks that I socialize with, they're avoiding this conversation. Or if it does come up, there's a general sort of a regurgitation of what they saw on the newscast last night from the mainstream media here in Canada. I mean, I don't know whether it's just me, but I find a lot of the folks I see in town here are still cable people. They're watching CBC, CNN, 24/7. You can walk down the streets in my town and watch the TV sets at what because they all got these 75-inch screens on the wall. It's like walking through a drive-in. And you can tell, what they're consuming as news because it's this is CNN, and I'm going, wow, and they really are avid consumers of that news. And then if you and the of course the echo chamber that we have in Canada. And now this is stuff international and American news, which basically just comes up, gets rebroadcast on our two or three major so-called networks. Which, by the way, one of them is about to go bankrupt. The Global TV network is barely hanging on. Their stock is worth 90 cents or something akin to that, which is not good news. But anyway, and so th this conversation is avoided. And I certainly don't like to bring it up because then I'm the guy who's, some sort of, you know, pro-American 51st state guy. And that's not exactly true. But, if I have to make a choice between, reality and delusional wishful thinking, I go with the reality, and I want to see us, continue with a good relationship with the guy that's 10 times my size, because, that just makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I don't
And
know
I
what the
don't really care what the flag is on the pole at that point. It can stay exactly the way it is, but let's have some sanity in this discussion.
well, I don't think anybody really knows what sanity is anymore, and that's I think that's a byproduct of what happened with COVID, and I I don't think we're quite out of that bell curve yet. We're still trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong, what's in between, and coupled with that, we get some people that will just jump on that and perhaps take advantage of that, as we're finding out here in our country. There really has been no difference. We've had a change of leader, but we haven't had a change of government. We haven't had a change of policy, uh, with the exception that we went through an existential crisis. I can't even say the word
Uh,
properly.
yeah,
Uh, Biggest
yes,
crisis since the Second World War for Canada.
yes,
Seemed to resonate well with everybody,
yes.
because of our American neighbor who made statements to the fact that we should just become the 51st state. And I think that what raised the hackles of people's back here. But the reality is that we're taken. We had this big crisis, and they get elected and then they adjourn Parliament. So obviously it wasn't a big crisis after all. And we're still willing to give support to an institution that really, I don't think, deserves the support that they supposedly have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not, we really want to focus on the environment that creates this kind of strange uh, societal setup. It is bizarre. 'Cause it's easy to be sarcastic as we are about it's all these lunatics and crackpots running around in the country, of which there are probably more than we would want to really count. But the underlying thing is what drives, I guess, everybody to seemingly ignore the elephant in the room. I mean, I don't get it. I also don't understand those who might, say, "Well, wait till Polyev gets into Parliament." It doesn't matter. You're still shuffling the same deck of cards. So the outcome is this: if you don't change fundamentally your approach, which since 2015, the Canadian government has slowly turned around, the ship of Canada, and headed it in a direction which is really uncharted waters. I mean, we're looking at, this socialist authoritarian slash globalist governance where everything will be okay if you just listen to us and go with the flow. And so every economic and social indicator proves otherwise, but yet there's been two polls, if you believe in polls, that suggest that we're on the right track in Canada. And I don't understand how that's possible, and that we're showing resilience. In fact, there's a report here from CTV News yesterday. The spin was that it just goes to show that we're not going to do anything till we get the right deal. That's how good this policy of ours and the leadership, they really know what they're doing because they're just standing there. We're not budging, until we get what we want. And I'm going, okay. And it's evident that, they feel that unless they say it, the check from Ottawa for the subsidy to Bell Media and CTV News, and of course CBC's bought and paid for 100%, they have to follow this regime and spin it. And if you don't spin it, then you're a traitor. You're with the enemy. And herein lies the thing that bothers me. Since when did our neighbors become the enemy? Like
Yeah.
this is the part that gets me a little cuckoo because I don't remember any discussion in Parliament or any election that was uh, fought on the grounds that our one and only neighbor is the enemy, and we're going to have to smash them, as Doug Ford said the other day, with tariffs and countermeasures. We're going to smash them. I think, what are you talking about? I don't recall signing up for anything as dumb as that. And this is where the lunacy part comes in again. Like, how did this even, how did so many people, buy into this crazy stuff?
Well, I think that goes back to what we said before, the taking away of our, or the potential taking away of our own sovereignty, and being melded into a bigger pot. And I don't know, people didn't like that, and it still resonates. You talk to people, and that's still one of the talking points of their conversation. And I don't know, is it, your famous words, is it something in the water up here? I don't know what it is.
Well, we've got clearly two camps evolving here. You've got the Doug Ford, David Eby, Tim Houston, Rod, what's his name? Canoe? I forget his first name. The Manitoba guy. They're clearly in the well, they're all NDP except for Houston and Nova Scotia. He's supposedly a conservative, but I think he's been drinking something too.
Well, like Mr.
Uh,
Ford. Yeah.
well, as someone pointed out, he lived in Bermuda for too long. Maybe that's his problem, and he's done very well uh, being supported by Sobeys and those corporate folks out in Nova Scotia. So once you start scratching sort of the surface of this stuff, you realize who these people are. But I digress here. So you've got that crowd, which is significant because Doug Ford's starting to sound like the character you've got out there in Victoria, except that Doug is short and fat and your guy is tall and skinny. But beyond that, I think they're pretty well starting to look like they cut from the same cloth. So there's that bunch. Then of course you have the guy from Quebec who has absolutely no relationship whatsoever with any of this stuff. He just goes along for the touristic purposes of having his meetings, but accedes to nothing. So that's a whole other story. And then what's left is you've got Alberta, Saskatchewan,
And Alberta, Saskatchewan, and
and that's it.
yeah.
Okay. So, well, I mean, I'm not sure what we're doing outside of Nova Scotia. Okay, you've got PEI. We're going through the geography of Canada here, but PEI doesn't, amounts to one of the suburbs of Vancouver in terms of population. So it's irrelevant. Then and Newfoundland, which runs hot and cold on so many things. I'm not sure what they're doing, but it's pretty clear that there's a catharsis that's developed as a consequence, and all this spin about one market, one Canada, being dreamt up by the delusional folks who are in Ottawa, and these two jokers that went down to Mexico to try and connive their way into President Scheinbaum's good graces, and she basically told them to go pound salt. So we're kind of. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out like what is the end game here. Like they keep coming up with stuff like, okay, we're gonna do big projects. I've heard this big projects thing now for 6 months. No one's actually named a big project. Then we're gonna buy our own stuff. This it's really silly because it sounds like we're gonna buy our own stuff. I saw someone make a beautiful analogy. That's like somebody who says, I run this store, but I'm not gonna sell anything to people who come in to buy stuff. I'm just gonna sell it to myself. Well, wait a minute. If you're running a shop and you want to sell it, to consumers and they're right next door, but you're going to say, no, I'm not selling this stuff to you. I'm going to sell it to myself. Well, that's not much of a business plan, but this is how they're talking,
Yeah.
and they keep talking about these they throw these figures, billions of dollars of investment. We've not seen any foreign investor come into the Canada with $1 billion.
No.
This morning, I woke up to, that mean orange man guy making a deal with Apple. That's going to manufacture a fifth of its stuff in the U.S. and, dumping in literally billions of dollars over the next 4 years. I don't see any investments coming our way, you know.
No. No.
So, and the lunacy, if we're going to stick with the theme of lunacy, we watch all this fighting going on between Ottawa and the West, which is perennial. You see the fighting going on between Ottawa and Quebec, which is, part of the political landscape. In the meantime, the province I live in is the one that's going to be gutted, which has the auto industry, the mining industry, and the steel industry. So if they don't get their act together, okay,
Yeah.
there is going to be no auto industry because most of those plants will just stop making it. If you demand people make electric cars, it's just not going to make it. They're going to say adios.
Mm.
50% tariff on the steel industry. You might as well close down Hamilton and Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie because that's where the steel comes from. And then the mining industry, which all basically owned by American interests anyway, like the other two. So that's the prize here, and if no one is really paying attention to this one. Doug Ford is running around insulting, the president, who isn't picking up the phone when his pal Carney phones and says, "Oh no, he gets voicemail. I'm sorry, the number you've reached is currently not in service for you."
Or more to the point, the number you've reached has absolutely no interest in what you want to say.
Well, so here we are in August, and in 2 or 3 months, as you say, we'll be talking about this in Parliament, supposedly, but it'll still be the same deck of cards and the same problems, and unless there's something substantive agreed to, what are we doing? So I don't know if it lasts that long. I mean, I look at some of these things and I realize in the summer people are too busy at the beach or they're going on holidays or whatever. But I'm not too confident about whether you can stretch this out to even to the end of the year
Well,
without something breaking.
something's going to have to break, and there's no question about it. And I don't know what it's going to be. But you're right, summertime. It's one of those things where for us in Canada, it's kind of the peak of, just we just want to do our own thing and leave us alone. And maybe that's not a bad thing. It kind of makes it a little easier to get through the day. But
Well,
uh,
there was a lot of talk about this Mexico-Canada tie-up. And it seems very clear to me that President Sheinbaum, Mexico, essentially told Canadians, "You want to mess around with fire, go right ahead, but we're not going to do that. We have no interest in playing this game." And by the way, they're a bigger trader now with the U.S. than we are.
yeah, well,
Duh.
I don't know. It is maybe to do a case study in in the future
Well,
and look back in this time that we've gone through here, 2020 to 2025, 26. And who knows? I mean, maybe we're doing it right and everybody else is wrong. I I really don't know.
well, this is the whole point. That we're in kind of that orbit at the moment where nobody has any answers
Hmm.
that make you feel better about the direction we're going in, or in fact give any sort of substance to the discussions or foundation rather to the discussions that are going on at the moment. We're kind of sitting on the side watching a game that's being played without really grasping what the
Well, yeah.
heck it is that they're trying to do or accomplish.
Well, for me, it's I've noticed here on our various walks and little drives around the neighborhood now that we actually have a cricket club that's on.
Yes.
And I guess my analogy to what you just said was is that I could watch the game. And I see they have a bat and I see they have a ball and I got a bunch of people on a field, but I have absolutely no idea what they're doing or how they score or how they play. And maybe that's what's really going on here. We're looking at something that we really don't understand. We don't have a comprehension of, and maybe we should be sitting down looking at that and trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, it's it's just exasperating because we can't figure it out. We're going, no, it's like when you're stuck in quicksand. And the trick is when you're stuck in quicksand, not to move around too much because you just start going further down. So you have to very slowly, methodically find ways to get out of it. But I
Mhm.
don't see that happening. And so that's my sort of metaphorical example. The fact that we're spinning our wheels in the quicksand, it doesn't bode well, I think.
Mhm.
But like I said, we said we're going to focus on the lunacy question, and I think we discussed it well and truly today because it doesn't make lunacy doesn't make sense, and this whole thing of trade and geopolitics that's being played out from our perspective here in Canada, I think is, I'm not even sure what the rest of the world thinks we're doing. When we tell people not to go into forests because it'll catch on fire. I mean, I'm quite sure that the international press must be, wetting their pants, laughing at a country that tells people not to go in the forest. You know, that's what are you talking about? You know,
Yeah,
it's
wow. Uh, yeah. So by sheer definition of is we're in what episode number
so I'd be 23. So yeah,
23,
yeah.
and we keep talking about the same things. Hopefully, trying to get something to resonate to make it better. And hmm, you know,
Well,
by
it's you know what it is, Bob? There hasn't been anything substantial in terms of positivity since the election 6 months ago. That's really what it comes down to. I would begrudgingly say that if there was any evidence of this whole crisis, which, by the way, is self-created. Yes, you've got a guy in Washington who's looking after his people, and we in a sense become collateral damage, and we could fix that real quick if we wanted to. But it doesn't appear that there are forces that want to do this for the moment until maybe there's enough money for Brookfield, and assets for their former chairman to make it worthwhile. I just supposing this, but there's been no indication that this is going our way in any way, shape, or form. That's the
Mhm.
thing, I guess, that's frustrating. And that's why today I think we have such a problem having a discussion about it because we can't seem to be able to even in a positive way say, okay, well, they're doing something that looks like it's working for us. Nothing. There's been really no evidence of that on any level. The first thing this guy does, he runs off to France and England after he gets elected and teams up with the other two crackpots over there who just decided, they're going to throw the whole Middle East negotiation for peace under the bus by dealing with the Palestinian issue as they're going to give them statehood. Okay, and now you see the connection between the three of them, who are clearly, trying to play games with U.S. foreign policy. But for us, this is not a good idea. They have an ocean between them and the U.S. We don't.
Hmm.
And their European Union little cabal that works when it comes to trade, well, they might be able to fool around with that, but 80% of our stuff is north-south. And I think that
Yeah.
dumbest thing they could have done to antagonize the Washington crowd was this Palestinian recognition thing, which is it
Well,
was
that and
unnecessary.
the fact too that they both Britain and the European Union have signed trade deals with the United States, and we're left sucking wind again. That kind of shows where we are, the insanity of it all. But
Correct. It is the lunacy comes back. But so you have that, and then you have uh, deadline after deadline being self-imposed by this regime in Ottawa, and they never meet their own deadlines.
yeah,
Okay. And so it's almost as if they think that everything can be blamed on the Americans. Well, no. I don't think the Americans spend a lot of time, as we do here north of the border, worried about this.
yeah, they've got way more important things to worry about and deal with. So,
Oh, absolutely.
and we're just a small, inconsequential part of the whole equation.
Well, we could certainly have more impact if we were more attuned to the bigger picture. And I don't, I think this is part of the Canadian psyche is that we think like a peewee team in that wants to play in the big leagues. You can't do that. If
Mhm.
if you're going to be a minor league player and you aspire to be a big league player, you have to do certain things in
Yeah,
order to meet the threshold to be a big league player.
the biggest thing in that is to grow up. But
Yeah, but I mean, again, that's an analogy, but the fact is that we've in the last 10 years frittered away our middle power status
yeah,
quickly. I mean, what's a decade? It's in history, it's like that, but they did it, and we're that's the exasperation that I feel today. And again, it's the lunacy theme that we focused on, and we said we're going to do a really short
here we are.
episode today. Well, we're we're we're
We're winding down.
we're going to wind down because this is the first episode I have to say that we've really kind of like fish flopping around on the dock after it's been caught. We don't know what to say anymore. I'm on this issue, because it's so screwy, you know. Um,
Yeah. And I guess the thing boils down to what we've been talking about, lunacy, insanity. And that's really where we are. We're worried about our sovereignty, but we're doing nothing about it to speak of. Um, all we know is that we don't want to be the 51st state, but nobody can tell me what's going to happen or how they're going to feel come Christmas time when nobody wants to deal with us. Nobody wants our steel. Nobody wants our wood. Nobody wants anything to do with us. And we can sell to ourselves all we want, but what's that going to do to us in the long run? Yeah.
well, I think in closing, the latest crazy news on our state-sponsored media is that the CBC is running a story at the moment that they're noticing that people are upset that there are folks out in the street blocking intersections, praying on the streets, and calling for an infidata for I don't know how long now. This they finally noticed this. I mean, you talk about a propaganda machine. This is ridiculous. And this is the CBC. Well, I can't believe it. There are people. This has been going on for 2 years, and suddenly the light's gone on at the CBC that our major urban centers are being taken over by literally tens of thousands of people who've just showed up in the last couple of years. They have no interest. They're just they're flooding the zone. And oh wow, I'm shocked. There's it's like, in
Shocked and
Casablanca, I'm shocked there's gambling going on here. Jeez. Anyway, on that positive note, I have to stop because this really is this is not one of our best broadcasts, I have to say, because we're I think we're reflecting our exasperation here.
Mhm. Which may be confused with lunacy. It's
Oh,
hard to
well, don't say that.
say.
All right, listen, for those watching, uh, give us a break. This is a summertime. We're all tired. We've had nothing but screwy news for the last couple months, and this is showing up on our broadcast today. So we promise to do a better one next time. Next week we'll do a deep dive into another issue, which may be a little more positive. I don't know, but this one is kind of the end of the summer. We're so tired of what's been going on. Maybe
Well,
that's, I guess that
the,
reflects our
the lunacy issue that has morphed into the flopping fish on the dock.
the flop. Yes, this is the flopping fish on the dock episode. All right, Bob, listen, you have a great weekend.
You too?
I'll see you next week. In the meantime, if something really fantastic comes up, we'll pop in on our podcast for our folks. Oh, and by the way, if you like what we do, except maybe this episode, uh, you know, let us know. And you might want to buy us a coffee.
Yeah. Maybe that'll wake us up.
There you go. There you go. All right, Bob, you take care of yourself.
You too.
I'll see
Talk to you
you.
soon.
Indeed. Take care.